Alright, so I got two 10 years later videos that I'm going to be filming back to back. They'll probably be up pretty quickly as I humanly can, because I still have quite a bit to talk about in the month of March, so I'm going to try to get them up as fast as possible without crunching myself. So here we are on the first of the two. Welcome back to another episode of 10 Years Later, the series where I talk about albums from the 2010s that were either impactful to me, impactful to music in general, very popular, or just worth revisiting 10 years later for good or bad reasons. And as you could tell from the title, the album that we'll be talking about today is the 2011 Panic at the Disco record, Vices and Virtues. This was the third studio album from Las Vegas-based rock group Panic at the Disco, who had seen some huge success with their first two albums, A Fever You Can't Sweat Out and Pretty Odd in 2005 and 2008 respectively. This album though came at what could have been a pretty turbulent time for the band, as it was their first record following the departure of lead guitarist Ryan Ross and bassist John Walker. Supposedly these two wanted the group to make some retro-inspired rock music, but lead vocalist Brendon Urie wanted them to move into more of a clean pop sound. Regardless, their departure had a very direct impact on this album in particular, as it left the group now consisting of just Brendon and drummer Spencer Smith with a massive hole in the songwriting front. As a result, Brendon would take over as the group's principal songwriter, and 2 years of creation later, out came the album. Now admittedly, I'm not the biggest follower of Panic at the Disco. Of course, I love I Write Sins Not Tragedies, and I did review their 2018 album Pray for the Wicked on my blog, which you can find at the link in the description. But while I loved that album, it was my first full-length experience with the group. I wasn't familiar enough with their sound outside of that album. Regardless, my enjoyment of that record, as well as the popularity of the group, led me to seek out this project. The base album was the only version I found on Spotify, though there are several bonus editions with extra tracks, and it's 10 songs in 38 minutes, which is compact but not surprising. From my research, it seems Panic at the Disco is very good at squeezing plenty of music into short run times. I can appreciate that, and in the case of this album, it's a breezy but very fun ride that I found myself consistently enjoying. The album takes on a couple different sonic styles with a good amount of variation, but handles them pretty wonderfully. The Ballad of Mona Lisa has a rather delicate start before moving into something much heavier. It's a nice blend of pop rock with charismatic vocals from Brendon Urie and a great throbbing feel that mixes with his voice perfectly. It's got a pretty cinematic and rich feel to it, and it kicks off the album perfectly. Let's Kill Tonight has a pretty unique feel with a bouncy vibe and some slight electronic influence to it that feels rather twisted. It's got a very danceable vibe to it, and while Brendon's vocals are filtered a bit, they still fit for the angry, dark vibe that the song's going for. And while I wasn't initially crazy about the chorus, it did grow on me as the song went on and I started to see what it was going for. Memories is a more bustling pop rock track that has this almost radio-friendly sound to it. Compositionally, it is a bit simple, but I think that works for the song, as it allows Brendon's vocals to be a bit more front and center. And I will say that despite its simplicity, the instrumental does take a few nice twists to keep it feeling fresh. Admittedly, there were only a few real lowlights on the album for me. Hurricane starts off feeling like this dance song before moving into something more throbbing with some guitar strums that feel a bit old school. I like the idea of the track, though I do think it could have used a better chorus. Brendon sounds great on it, but I don't think the melody is all that catchy, though I do like the instrumental interlude at the end. Trade Mistakes is a track that starts a bit lighter before transitioning into something a bit heavier on the hook. I do like Brendon's very dramatic vocal performance throughout the song, though I'm not exactly hooked on the production. There's not as much about it that immediately grabs me, unfortunately. Otherwise, outside of these two tracks, the album ends about as well as it starts. Ready to Go, Get Me Out of My Mind is a track I didn't realize I had known. I'm very sure I've heard the intro to the instrumental in some commercials and or YouTube vlogs in the past, and I recognize the vocal melody as well. Hearing it fully, I do really enjoy it a lot. It's a lot poppier than a lot of what's here, but it's a very smooth jam that I think I enjoy for how sunny and bright it is. It's weirdly a track that feels nostalgic. Like I hear it and I transport back to an old time when I was younger and things were simpler. Maybe it's because I'm a sucker for some of those light electronic moments, but I can appreciate the song for being able to do that. Always is a light acoustic ballad inspired by the events of The Great Gatsby. There are a few goofy lyrics here, like this one about falling apart like bad glue on a get well card, but I'm a sucker for acoustic tracks like this, and Brendon's vocals are perfect for the sound. It's very simple, yes, but still very enjoyable. The Calendar is a very quirky cut that seems to allude to Ryan Ross and John Walker's departures from the band. It's another track that's twisty, and it's not quite as heavy as some of the others here, but that's okay as the instrumental still has moments of sunniness, and Brendon's vocals are still very smooth. Sarah Smiles, not to be confused with the similarly titled Hall & Oates song, actually shares some similarities with that track in that they were both written for a love interest named Sarah, though with two different spellings. In this case, the Sarah that this song was written for was the woman who Brendon would later marry, as he wrote this in hopes of winning her over, which of course he did. To that I say cheers. The track is a bit more plucky, but it has a light airiness to it that in ways feels a bit old school. Brendon sings in his lower register for most of the song, but that works as it blends very well with the punchiness of the song. And Nearly Witches Ever Since We Met closes the album, starting off feeling kind of dreamy before transitioning into something with a bit more kick to it. I like the mix of the electronic guitar strums and the tiptoeing keys that play behind Brendon's varied vocals. The song's always changing its feel and vibe, and it's twisting in so many unique ways. This is definitely how you close out an album. It's an awesome track that wraps things up wonderfully. Overall, I have to say that I really enjoy this project. The production is very twisty throughout, taking a lot of different styles but elevating them very nicely. It's nice to see the group tackling a number of these different sonic styles but nailing them on such a consistent basis. Brendon Urie himself is obviously an amazing vocalist, and I think he shows a lot of range throughout the project. I know this was his first big experience on the songwriting front, and sure, maybe there were a few moments that could have used tightening up, but I do think the storytelling on the record was pretty solid, and the consistent energy and excitement of the many instrumentals kept me engaged throughout my entire listen. It's a short record, much like a lot of Panic's stuff, but while it lasts, it's a very great time. I'm not sure if it's one of their bests because I'm not engaged enough with Panic at the Disco to know, but it's definitely a great body of work and one definitely worth checking out. Back in 2011, I feel like I would have probably enjoyed this record a bit. I wasn't super familiar with Panic, but I liked music from similar artists, so I feel like I could have gotten behind this. Listening to it now, I definitely really enjoy it, maybe more than a lot of others do. If I had to put it on my rating scale, this album would get an excellent from me. Is it one of Panic's best records? I'm not sure, but either way, I had a very fun time with it, and I'm glad I chose to give it a listen. But that's just my opinion on this album. What did you guys think about it? Did you listen to it back in 2011? Do you still listen to it now? Did you love it back then? Hate it back then? Do you love it now? Do you hate it now? Are you just completely indifferent towards it? Are you indifferent towards Panic at the Disco? And what's your favorite Panic at the Disco album? Whatever your thoughts are, whatever your experiences are, leave them down in the comments below. Let's keep this civil and have some fun as we like to do. If you guys want to hit like and subscribe, thank you. If not, it's no big deal. I totally understand. And if you guys want to support my passion for content creation by subscribing to my OnlyFans, where I create exclusive music review and poetry content for $4.99 a month, the link to that is also in the description. Again, it's no big deal if you can't or don't want to. I appreciate anyone who is able to. And as I said, my next video is going to be filmed right after I turn off this recording. The next 10 Years Later video that I'm going to be doing is, of course, on The Weeknd's House of Balloons. All I'm going to say is that my script for that is long. I have a lot to say. So stay tuned for that, but until next time, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.